beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I am Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you are interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the family. Okay, so as you guys saw from the title and thumbnail of today's video, I'm going to be trying some new products for you guys. So the star of the show for this video is going to be the Solmane 2 eyeshadow palette. Now this is from Oden'S, which is a Swedish brand. I think I'm pronouncing this right. I'm doing my best. I know that I don't speak the language, so I'm going to be doing my best. So I'm going to be trying the Solmane 2. I'm also going to be trying the new Sydney Grace brushes, and by trying I mean letting you guys know how I feel about them. I've been using this for about a week now, as well as the colored Raine Cinnabay bronzer. So I'm going to be trying this for the first time in today's video. So I'm going to be giving you guys kind of like some first impressions, review thoughts for everything throughout the video. Like we always do with eyeshadow first impressions, I'm going to give you all a little bit of details about the palette. I will give you some live swatches, and then we'll go into this one eye look, and I'll of course come back at the end and give you all my final thoughts. So the Solmane 2 palette, like I said, this is from Oden'S, which is a Swedish brand. Now, as I understand it, this is inspired by the moon and the sun. This is the second iteration of the Solmane collection from the brand. So with it, you get 15 shades, and you can see it's really color coded into these rows. You get a blue row, a purple row, and a more orange coppery row. Now, in addition to the eyeshadow palette, the collection does include some blushes, some highlighters, some liners, as well as a mirror, I believe. I did not pick up anything else because I just didn't need any of the other things, and they didn't really catch my eye. The one thing I was interested in was the liners, and I did see some reviews that said it was dry, so I skipped on those. So the only thing I really got was the palette. Now, just a little bit of details. This does retail for $32.90. I know it sounds really odd, but again, international brand. The packaging for this is stunning. It is absolutely beautiful. Now, the packaging of the palette and the sleeve match completely. I will say that the sleeve was very tightly packed onto this. It took a minute and a half for me to get it out. Now, this was made in China. It is cruelty free, and it has a suggested shelf month life of 36 months. So definitely something that you will, if that matters to you, I would say keep that in mind. You do get a total of 15 grams of product as well. So those are some of the details about the palette. Let's dive into some live swatches, and then we'll head on over to do this eye look. Okay, so like we always do, we're going to dive into this review, well, first impressions video with some swatches. I'm going to go row by row, starting with the blue, then the purple, then the orange, and then we'll just do one quick eye look. Okay, here we have the first 4 shades. Soft Cloud, Mercury, Neptune, Deep Space. And you can see that this first shade is very, very powdery. Here we have the next 4 shades. Nebula, Meteor, Dream, Starry Sky. Here we have the next 4 shades. Galaxy, Hallucinations, Warm Light, Sunlight. And these are the final 3 shades. Solar, Eternal, Black Hole. So here are all of the swatches of the Solmane 2 palette. Now I will say that some of these light pastel shades are very, very chalky and did not swatch the best. Overall, the mattes in this palette seem to be on the chalky side, but swatches don't tell the full story. The shimmers seem really, really beautiful. This shade here, Starry Sky, as well as Meteor, seem to be more on the toppery side and don't have a ton of base and pigment to it, but the copper shades look really, really nice and pigmented. So I'm excited. Let's play with these and put some of these on the eyes. Ooh, these purples are cute. This isn't the most pigmented black, but it is a pretty rich black. Okay, so I do have my foundation on, and for my eyes I went ahead and primed with the colored Raine paint base eyeshadow primer in the shade Wheat. So let me bring you guys in a little bit closer and we'll dive into this look. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with this blue shade Neptune, and I'm gonna use that as my first transition corner into the inner half of the eye. Ooh. That is really rich. Following the linings on your cheeks, 'cause baby in your absence life is boring, so I'll never leave. Then switching to a smaller brush, I'm gonna go into the deep purple shade, and I'm gonna use that into the outer half of the eye, but I'm gonna be very light with it because I think I'm gonna go back in with the lilac and try to blend that out a little bit. So that deep purple shade is called Galaxy. Picking up a little bit of that on my brush, putting it into the crease, and then I'm gonna start blending that into the purple. I'm getting a little bit of patchiness, but it's not horrible. And with just a little bit extra blending, it's working out fine. Pigment is wow. Then I'm gonna take this big brush, which honestly might be too big, but I have no other one. So I'm gonna take that one. I'm gonna go into this deep blue shade, and I'm gonna use that as an outer V color. So yeah, this is a pretty big blush. This would actually be really good for like blending out eyeshadow, not eyeshadow, but as a like blending out the base of your primer. But I'm using it to pack on this blue shade into the outer part of the eye. Ooh, that is lovely, and that is blending into the purple like magic. If I find myself in reckless, you'll be the one to pull me back into reality. I would typically never use a brush that's this big. Following the linings. Okay, I'm just gonna go back into the purple shade a little bit on this side, and just tap that a little over some of that blue. I feel like it's a little bit less prominent here than it is here. And then I'm actually going to take this really, really tiny blending brush, and I am going to go into this lilac shade and just blend out the edges of the purple a little bit to soften things up, and I'm just using that at the very top. Almost as if I'm adding a transition shade kind of after the fact. And I'm going over into the blue as well. And this brush is really, really small, which means that you can do real detailed precision work, and you can really get up in here if that is what you wanted to do. This is a nice brush. Okay, now let's switch to some shimmers. So for shimmers, we really only have two brushes here to use. So I'm gonna be working with both of them. I will actually go in with this bigger brush first and use that to put on the shadow that I'm gonna put into sort of like into the center of the lid, and then I'm gonna go in with the smaller brush for like the inner half. So I am going to start with this blue shimmer. It's the shade Deep Space. So I'm gonna see how that picks up with this brush, and then if not, I will go in with my finger as I typically do. This is also a very weird shape for me, not my favorite type of brush. I will be very honest, I don't like the angle because it's just not what I use. But we're trying it out. Okay. And this is going in dry. There's no, I didn't spray my brush or anything, so. It's picking up well enough. Okay. I'm actually still gonna go with my finger just because I feel like I get the best payout that way. That is so pretty. I'm just gonna pop that on the lid. And you see how immediately it's way more intense. I'm just gonna do the same on this side. Now, as I like to do whenever I go in with my finger, I will go back with a brush and I will just use that to, you know, clean things up, make sure everything is nice and sharp and blended. So I'm just blending that shade into the mattes a little. This is a really, really odd angle for brush for me to work with. I guess it's kind of good for precision, like around here. Just not one I would have chosen. We'll come back and do some more blending, but let's get into the second shade. So I'm sticking with the purple theme. I'm gonna go into this shimmer here. I thought about this one, but this look is a little dark already, so I wanna get something a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna go in with the Meteor shade, which is a little bit more of a topper than anything else. So let's see how that works. I'm using the smaller brush that I showed you guys. I'm gonna try picking up that with the brush, and then I'll probably go back with my finger. But it did pick up pretty nicely, so at least we know the brush picks up product well. Ooh, okay. And I'm just blending that purple into the blue. So, like, it is definitely more of a topper shade, so I feel like it's fading into the blue and you're not really seeing the purple as much, but it's there. You're seeing enough of it. Okay, going back in with the brush because I feel like this is actually working really well. I'm definitely getting a little bit of fallout with this whole look. And typically I do my base makeup, my face makeup after I do my eyeshadow, but yeah, when I film I try to do my base face, so that's why my foundation is on. But generally I like to do my face makeup after because I anticipate fallout with like every eyeshadow palette, even if it's just a little bit. Okay, so this is applying really nicely with this brush and blending really well. This is a little bit stiffer than some brushes, but I kind of like that for this level of precision because I'm getting, you know, really into this inner third part of the eye, and I don't really have a ton of brushes that let me get very precise. Okay, so this is what the eyes are looking like right now, and I like it. I'm not mad. I am not mad. Okay, so let's get started on the waterline. Okay, so one thing I will say about the Sydney Grace brush set is that there are no really small brushes that you can use to get into the waterline. The smallest is this little blending brush that I showed you guys, which actually would work really well in the waterline. But that's kind of the only one that's there. So actually, I'm gonna go ahead and use this one in the waterline. So I use this for the lilac shade. I'm just gonna use my color switch and brush that off. And I'm gonna go in with my purple shade, that deep purple again, and I'm gonna put that into the outer half. Okay, this doesn't give me as much control as I like to have when it comes to doing this part, so there's that. I actually have a lot of fallout there, so I'm just gonna clean that up real quickly before I go in with any shadow over that blue. And then lastly, because I want to try to use as much colors as possible, I'm going to go into this more like red coppery shade, Eternal, and I'm going to put that into the inner half of the eye. And I'm going to be using my Refa number 26 brush. Okay, so this is looking nice. I do have a lot of fallout, so I'm just gonna go in with a powder brush and try to brush that away. Oh god, I think I'm making it worse. So I also am just gonna add a little bit of foundation here because I did wipe some of that away, and I'm just gonna blend that in. Okay, now I'm gonna zoom you guys out a little bit and we're gonna get started on the rest of the face so you guys can see the rest of these brushes in action. So I'm just gonna quickly apply some concealer. This is the LYS concealer in the shade DN3. And I'm mainly using this to just clean up that fallout because it's kind of just stuck to my face. Next, I'm just gonna set my under eye concealer. Now, the brush set does come with this brush, which would actually be really great for setting the under eye. But I have been using that one for highlight. So I'm just gonna go in with this Morphe M536 brush that I have, which is very similar to this one. But I like using this one to set my under eye. I also like using this one to set my concealer or my eyeshadow eye primer base whenever I'm doing that. So just gonna use that to set the rest of my face. And one thing I will say about these Sydney Grace brushes is that for the most part, I don't use them as directed. And that's not because I don't like them. It's just that I feel like the shapes of some of the brushes and the sizes of some of the brushes just don't agree with how I typically apply my makeup. So there's that. Next, I'm just gonna set my entire face. So the brush set does come with, they call this their big powder brush. And this has that pointed shape, but I don't like using this for powder. I prefer a bigger brush when it comes to powder. So this is like a typical size brush that I would use when it comes to setting my powder. Even this Morphe brush is one that I would use. So you see, in terms of sizes, this is a lot smaller than what I typically use to set my face. So I actually have not been using that as a powder brush to set my face. So I'm just gonna do what I normally do, and I'm going in with my MAC powder, which is almost done. Look at that. And I'm just taking this old Tarte brush that I've had for forever, and I'm just gonna set my entire face. So next I'm gonna do bronzer. I'm actually gonna be trying this new colored Raine bronzer. Well, it's new to me. This is in the shade Cinnabe. If you've seen my Memorial Weekend haul, you would have seen this. I will make sure to link that down below. But this is that shade. I've heard that it's very similar to Fenty Beauty's Coconutty, so I'm really excited to try this. And what I have been using this powder brush for is actually bronzer. I like that it has that fine tip because it does allow me to get really precise. So I prefer this for bronzer compared to actually using it as a powder brush. So this is my first time trying this, so I'm just gonna like just dip gently into it, and then I'm gonna start here and then work on like the outer part of my face. So okay. It's a nice natural color. Now, one thing about this powder brush is that it is very soft. So what I found that it doesn't pick up a lot of product, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Honestly, I guess it kind of depends on your preference. So that's kind of the reason why I don't like using it for my pressed powders, is because it just doesn't really pick up a lot of product, and I don't like the pointed tip for that. This bronze is cute though. It is like a nice light natural bronze and does remind me of Coconutty. Like, you can see it's a very sort of gentle bronze. Okay, for blush, I'm just gonna go in with my Milani Flower Blush, and the brush set does come with a angled blush brush. Now this I actually do like. I do have a couple of brushes that look like this. This is just a basic Morphe one that I have. Very similar. This one is definitely smaller in size compared to it, but this is so freaking soft. That's one thing. All of these brushes are extremely soft, and it actually might be too soft in some regard and in some brushes, but it's very soft. And what I found is that because it's so soft, some products it works well with, some it doesn't, because it doesn't really pick up anything. So picking up some of that blush, and I am just applying that to the cheeks and dragging it up, as well as kind of blending it into the bronzer. Now I'm not gonna do too much of this because this is a shimmer blush, and I don't want my cheeks to be too shiny. Lastly, highlight. I'm actually gonna go into this old Too Faced highlighter. It's called You Light Me Up. I found this at TJ Maxx. And I'm gonna use that brush, brush that I told you guys would be good for under eye powder, as a highlighter. I've actually been really enjoying this as a highlighting brush. So just swirling that around and applying directly to my cheekbones. And what I like about this brush is that I feel like this does give me the most natural highlight. Like sometimes I can end up doing highlighter in a way where there's like a very obvious streak of highlights across my face, and this really helps me to make sure that it's nice and diffused and blended and really natural and not just like highlight. So I've been really enjoying this brush for highlight. Okay, so this is what the face is looking like. I'm gonna go ahead, add some liner, add some mascara, finish up the rest of my face, and I'll be right back to give you guys my final thoughts on all of these new products that I've been trying. Okay, I'm back, and this is the final look. Also, earrings, right? Happy Juneteenth. I know we passed Juneteenth, but it's June, so happy Juneteenth. Okay, so this is the final look. So let me just give you guys some of my kind of like closing thoughts. I really like this palette. I think that the quality in here is impeccable. I didn't get to use all of the shades, obviously, but what I used, I really enjoyed. Now, I did avoid, for the most part, these two pastel shades, and to be quite honest, I was a little wary that, you know, those two would be throwaway shades for me. But when I was doing this look and I went into the lavender shade to really buff out the deeper purple, I was like, okay, I see it. It has a purpose, and I can do the same with this light blue shade for this really deep, rich royal blue. So I see having those lighter shades as really like buffing out shades, so I'm not mad at that. Overall, you know, I knew that I like Oden'S Eyes quality going into this. I have their Legendary Diversa palettes, and I have a couple from before. I will say that I feel like this new line of palettes, ever since Legendary Diversa, the quality is better, and I really do appreciate that. I think that the shades in here performed really well. I don't think that we get a ton of different sort of formulas. Like most of these are just kind of like metallics, like really good metallics. I will say that there are two kind of toppery shades. Like this purple is a little bit more on the toppery side, as well as this shade, Starry Sky. I will say that Starry Sky definitely feels like a topper shade. It'd be great for like a halo eye. I actually went in and used that in my inner corner highlight, and I think that that's probably the most diverse shades, because all of the other shimmers really feel just like regular metallic shimmers. But I think they performed well. I didn't need a glitter glue. I didn't need to wet my brush. None of that. So nice palette. I will keep using this. You know that it will be in a ranking the last 10 or 11 or how many other eyeshadows I used. So be on the lookout for my final thoughts on this. And of course, there will be pictures in that video as well as on Instagram. So make sure you're following me there as well. So the next new product that I used was the colored Raine bronzer. This is a nice bronzer. I think it's a really nice, affordable bronzer. Now the packaging is nothing flashy, nothing special. It is real basic. I'm gonna be real honest. This is not the cutest packaging, but in terms of quality, I thought that this performed well. It definitely does give me that coconutty vibes from Rihanna. It's not too deep, it's not too red, it's not too neutral. It's a very nice natural bronzer. I think right now, as I'm getting darker, it may not be the best for the summertime, but it works. It does work. But I feel like this I'm really gonna enjoy once winter hits again and I start to lighten up a little bit more. But overall, very nice natural bronze. If you don't like anything that's too stark and in your face, and if you are not somebody that likes a red bronzer like myself and you want something that leans more neutral, I think you will really enjoy this one. And for the price, can't really be bad. And lastly, let's talk about the Sydney Grace brushes. So like I said in my intro, I was gifted these brushes by the brand, but I try my best to be as sort of genuine and honest about how I feel about something, regardless of whether or not I was gifted. I, however, don't feel some kind of way if you as a viewer don't like to watch reviews from people who receive the products in PR or gifted. I completely agree, because sometimes I do the same thing where I'm like, I don't know if I really trust or want to watch this video because I knew you were gifted the product. So if you don't want to hear my opinion because of that, I'm not mad. I understand 100%. I mean, for the most part, 99.987% of the makeup I have is my own that I purchased, because I'm not a big channel, as you can see. But I am very grateful that Sydney Grace gifted me these products, and I'm going to give you guys sort of my raw thoughts and opinions. Overall, I do like the brush set. I think that it was really well put together. I think that the packaging and the quality is really nice. It is very high-end. It's pretty luxe in my opinion. One thing I don't like about the packaging is that for each brush, if you really wanted to know which brush it was, there's nothing on it. So you can't say if this is like an A whatever or a crease brush, because there's no distinguishing name on the brush itself. All it says is Sydney Grace. I also feel like I expected this to be a little bit heavier. The brushes themselves feel pretty light, and I did expect them to feel a little bit heavier. Now, the face brushes do have a little bit more weight to them, so they do feel a little heavier, but the eye brushes definitely feel a little light. In the eye brush set, we get some blending brushes, and we get some of those like basic like shadow all over the lid brushes. I do like these 3 blending brushes. I think that these work really well. I feel like you get a small, medium, large, which allows you to get really, really detailed when it comes to the looks that you want to do. And these brushes are very soft and they blend really well. This one is definitely more densely packed than I think I prefer. I think I would prefer something that was a little bit more fluffier. But the other 2 I really like, and this one is really great for precision with. Now, when it comes to these 3 brushes, I am not a huge fan of an angled like shadow brush. That's just not something that I use. So this is going to be one that's not going to get a ton of use for me. This one, however, I really do like because I can really pack on shadow into the inner half of my eye. And then there's this big brush that I used in my outer V, but it's not a brush that I would typically use there. It's actually too big for my preference, so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this. I think that it would work really well if you have an eyeshadow base and you want to blend it out on your lid, and that's what I'm thinking I'm going to be using it for, but I don't know. It's definitely not one of my favorites. Now, in addition to that, there are 2 liner brushes. I think that this one is really good for carving out your eyebrows. This one as well, or it can be used for liner if you use like a pot liner or whatnot. I don't do that, so I will end up using both of these for carving out my brows. And so far, this one has worked really well, and I'll see how this one works. Let me show you guys my 2 favorite brushes though. So my 2 favorite brushes are these 2 here. You can see they're very well used. They're very dainty. This is the foundation brush. This is an amazing foundation brush. I think it works well to, you know, apply the foundation to your skin. It pushes it in really well. It's not super streaky. It's not streaky at all. I don't know why I said super streaky. It's not streaky at all. It blends everything in really nicely. Now, for the most part, I'm a sponge girl. I like to use sponges when it comes to applying my foundation. What I do like with a brush though is it allows you to apply a foundation much faster than a sponge. So sometimes I will go in with a brush and then I will go over that product with a sponge, because the sponge really does do a better job just generally in terms of giving you a more seamless application without streaks and just kind of like pushing that product in. So the second brush that is my favorite is this one here. It's like a concealer brush, and I love using this to apply my base, my eyeshadow primer to my eyelids, as well as to blend out concealer. So these 2 brushes are definitely ones that I'm going to get a lot of use out of. And now the last 2 brushes are not necessarily brushes that are my favorite. So the first is the large powder brush. To be honest, I think this is too small to be a powder brush for me. And I don't like the shape of it because it is kind of pointy. I prefer mine to have like a very kind of flat top head, so that when I'm setting my face, it's super easy. So what I have been using this for is bronzer, which I like. I think it works well for bronzer. The other thing too about this is that it is really soft, almost too soft soft where it doesn't pick up product very well. So that's one of the issues that I have with the large powder brush. But generally it works well for bronzer. It picks up really nicely. It doesn't pick up too much product, which means that I can really control how I apply it. Versus more densely packed brushes where it can be like too much too soon and it can be a problem. And then there is the blush brush. Honestly, I have no issues with this. It's a nice blush brush. It's a little bit smaller than I would prefer. I actually prefer something that's just slightly bigger, but I love this shape when it comes to blush brushes because it really does allow you to apply blush really well. I just wish that this was a little bit bigger. So that's it for me when it comes to the Sydney Grace blushes. I think overall they're priced really well. I think the quality is really, really nice. It just depends on what type of brushes you like to use, how you prefer to apply your makeup. So I would just say think about that, think about the brush shapes that you prefer, and then just figure out if this is a set for you or if any of these individual brushes would make sense in your routine. Would I have picked this up on my own if I didn't get it in PR? Honestly, no, and that's mainly because I have more than enough brushes in my collection that I'm not buying brushes at all. But I'm really glad that I received these, and I have been enjoying using them, and I will continue to use them. And if I do see any issues with like hairs falling out or whatever it is as I continue to use these, I will of course come back to this video, put a pinned comment or do something on my Instagram just to let you all know how these have been faring. So that's that. So those are all of the new products that I tried in today's video. If you liked this video, I would absolutely love if you would hit that like button. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe. Join the family. Come on back. You know I'll have a ton of content, a ton of videos coming for you guys. And I love, you know, having all of these interactions with you all. Yeah, so that's it. Like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill. As always, I love you guys. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye.